Hello, and welcome to Wine with Wita, the podcast that is dedicated to engaging with health professionals and caregivers in meaningful discussions. I'm your host, Rita Shamoon, or as my clients call me, Wita. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist, and I am so excited to have you here. Each week, we deep dive into connecting you with caregivers and healthcare professionals, sharing their insights, stories, and key takeaways to help you with your child's diagnosis and your journey. Whether you are a parent, healthcare professional, a lifetime learner, or simply a wine enthusiast, you're in the right place. So let's sit back and relax and enjoy today's episode. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a wonderful and very special episode of Wine with Wita. Today, or actually this week, I celebrate my 3 years in RS Speech Pathology. So I thought it would be so special to interview my first ever client who has shaped my business and has been my biggest cheerleader. And I wanted to dedicate this episode to clients that we love, because without them, without their support, businesses sometimes may not keep afloat. I am privileged to have Nicky as my guest on Wine with Wita this week.
Hi, Rita. I'm a little bit nervous. This is terrible. I'm not used to speaking to you and being recorded while we do it, but here we go. Anything for you.
There's no filters on Wine with Wita today.
That's a good thing. No, is it a good thing? No, maybe not with me.
It's a good thing. And I think that's what makes Wine with Wita so captivating, because we show the real sides of ourselves. And that's what engages with authenticity, as they say, is the in thing. And I just wanted to celebrate you and the work that we've done with your gorgeous son and how far he's come a long way.
Yeah.
Now, before we get started, I wanted to briefly introduce Nicky. Now, anyone who's in business knows that clients become friends, or clients become your friends before your friends become your clients. And Nicky is a true testament to that. I vividly recall receiving a phone call from Nicky close to, just over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a winter's day. And I just came back from an open home, and I was actually questioning, do I go back to work? I was like, do I go back? Do I want to take the risk? I've heard lots of negativity about opening my own business. And I'll never forget the anguish that Nicky had in her voice, a sense of fear, a sense of confusion, and don't like to say this word, but sense of desperation, because accessing speech therapy was quite confusing. And as a mum, I felt her pain, and I felt it was my duty to support another mum in the best way that I can. And I actually said to Nicky, I haven't actually registered my business yet. Are you happy to come along with the ride? I don't know what I'm doing. Do you want to hold my hand as I hold your hand? Pretty much.
I think it was through my tears. I was like, yes.
Yeah, and so we pretty much held our hands for our first, like my first in business and your first with your son starting this therapy journey. And it has blossomed into a gorgeous friendship. And I'm so forever grateful for you and all the advocacy you've done for me and pushing me and supporting me. And for that, I am so privileged to now call you a dear friend of mine. So, Nicky, let's get rock and rolling and to share your story.
Amazing. Well, it's funny when you bring up that night. It's not that I forget it, but I think I forget how desperate I was. That's a really good word. It's really terrible to even say that as a mum, right? Because you hope you're never going to be that desperate. But I remember rocking up to, obviously the teacher had said something's really wrong with Serge, and she was like, we need to get him assessed and all the rest of it. And I remember that night rocking up to his soccer training, and he was playing on the field, and I had a beautiful mum next to me talking to me, but I was not paying attention to her. And because I was thinking about Serge, I had tried to ring up speech therapists around my area. They were like, it's going to be a huge wait. And I remember thinking, how am I going to get him any help? He's just started school. And funnily enough, the mum pour this, and she's still my friend today. She was yapping away next to me, and I stopped her and I said, I can't, I just can't have this conversation. And I burst into tears and told her what had happened. And then she was like, yeah, it's really hard to find a speech therapist. And literally within 2 minutes, she's like, hold on, let me just ring my friend. She rings her friend and she's like, right, I've got my friend here. She needs a speech therapist. Don't you have one? And then she goes, yes, I do. And I had your number in my hands within maybe 5 minutes. And I was very grateful. I rang you quite late, I think, by the time.
Do you want to know the funny story? And I don't know if this is a line. It just came to me now. I was leaving Dan Murphy's buying wine for a school teacher that night, and I got the message from Chantel. I don't know if this is the calling that I was holding a bottle of wine for a teacher, and now you're on wine with Wita.
It was the gods knew then. The gods knew 100% then. But I was very grateful to you for taking that phone call. I remember crying. I mean, I didn't even know you. You probably thought I was some absolute psychopath of a mother coming at you with these tears. But I remember you handling me with such grace and such ease. And all of a sudden, from being desperate, I felt hopeful. And I was very grateful. It was a really great start to our relationship, but also a really great start for Serge.
Yeah. Just let's give the listeners context. So you said school. Now, Serge had just started kindergarten at this stage, and it was the beginning of term 2 where the teacher raised red flags about Serge's learning, ability to understand, his literacy. Now, before she raised those concerns, let's go back to preschool.
Yes.
Did anyone raise concerns to you then? I know, let's just tell everyone about his history with his hearing first.
Yeah. Okay. So, look, he would have been about, 2.5, I think, when I started to realize maybe something was going on with his hearing or something was going on with his speech. I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what I was doing. I'm just winging it.
But you're a mum.
Yeah, but I'm a mum and I have a gut. And, it's the big testament that you don't ignore the gut, right? But I ignored it. And, everyone was like, he's fine. And I was like, yeah, he's fine. Anyway, by the time he just hit 3, he was really nonverbal. He would say stuff, but it'd be like he was muffled, like he was underwater. It was very, he wasn't having a sentence. He wasn't really saying words. And then we went and got his ears tested. And, the specialist is like, had him in for surgery the next week. And he said the best way to explain it, and the only way I can say it, it's like he's got protective earmuffs on, and that's what he can hear. So Serge, went for this grommets, which is quite a common surgery, and things changed quite instantly for him. And I thought, oh, great, it's great. He's going to be fine now. He can hear, and there's going to be no issues. And it was probably when he was 4, when he went to a daycare, like a proper preschool, I started to notice some stuff. His retention.
Retention.
His retention, like being able to retain any information. Actually, maybe not so much that at that age, but I just noticed he wasn't interested in sitting down and writing. Speech was 100% better than it was, so, and, from the outside looking in, you're thinking, well, he's progressed, right? I just noticed he was nowhere near where Savina, my eldest daughter, was, but not that you compare your kids, because every kid learns differently, I'm a big believer in that. But I did realize that he just wasn't learning in the same way. He wasn't interested in sitting down and writing. He wasn't interested in really anything. And I thought, well, he's not ready to go to school.
How old was he at this stage?
He would have been over 4. So 4.5. I went to the daycare. I told them my concerns, and they said to me, and look, they were a lovely place, but they did say to me quite openly, not once, but many times, boys don't want to sit down and write. They want to be outside and play. They learn differently. But I couldn't shake what I was feeling, and I couldn't shake what I was seeing with Serge, because I felt like if you put him in a school environment, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then, so, I went against my gut. I didn't do anything about it. I kick myself for that, because I think as mums, we do need to follow that gut and not listen to the outside noise.
Yeah.
because that part's always right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and went to school, and it actually wasn't term 2. I don't know if you said term 2. It was week 2. I
Oh,
had an
week
amazing.
two. Oh,
I
so you
had an amazing.
contacted me in term two. Yeah.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. 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 So
Maybe
it
I.
was that winter around May, a May. What?
Actually, you're right, because it was week 2. I didn't understand the not severity, but of what was happening with Serge.
Mm,
Um, and I had to go get tested. Remember, that took ages to get
yes.
in. I needed to get him assessed. So yes, you're right. The timeline actually probably does work when you go back.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so she actually came up to me in week 2. Great teacher. You talk about
I remember
experienced
her.
teachers
Yeah. Yeah.
that know what they're doing. She pulled me up at school pickup one day and she said to me, "I'm really sorry." She goes, "I need to speak to you." She said, "There's something going on with Serge. He will be okay, but if you don't hop onto it straight," and her words were exactly, "If you don't hop onto it now, he is going to be in a world of trouble in his learning."
In that
Um,
moment, when you hear that as a mother, where did
yeah,
your head go? Knowing you, Nikki, and your mindset,
yeah,
what was
yeah.
that experience like hearing those words from the teacher?
I'm going to be really honest because I don't think I know how to be anything other than this.
And I
I
love
was I was furious. I'm not going to lie to you.
it.
I went through a wealth. I went through a whole thing of anger because I was like, I knew it. I was more angry at myself because I
Mm,
up on those signs in the last year, especially 6 months, but the last year, I went against my gut and I didn't push for when I knew something was going on. And the fact that she had only known him a
yeah,
week and a bit, and she was like, "We have some major issues here,"
yeah,
was, yeah, I was mad at myself because I thought, now how am I going to get him? He's already at school. I can't stop this train from
yeah,
unfolding. So here we go. I'm stuck. Yeah. So the initial one was anger, and then came action pretty quickly.
yeah, yeah. So you went to see a speech pathologist, a local one, for an assessment, and as you said, it's so hard to find somebody.
Absolutely. I had to wait weeks and it was
Yeah.
really frustrating. I rung like Rita, you know me well enough
Mm,
now, how psychotic I can be when I've put something in my head that I want to do. Um, I rung so many different places. They had nothing. I rung, I rung people even out of the area. I was like, "I'll drive. I'm not going to be precious about it." No, nothing. Put me on wait list upon wait list. I was really disappointed.
mm,
But finally I got one, which was relatively close, but I still had to wait, I think,
yeah,
until the holidays, until
yeah.
they could get. So I had to wait literally weeks.
And they completed the assessment. And do you recall the diagnosis that he received?
Oh my God, you're going to make me laugh now because I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to remember the exact words. Literally. Yes.
Would you like me to tell the listeners the
Yeah, I would
diagnosis?
like you to step in at this point. Yes, please.
So I'm a bit professional now. Serge was diagnosed from, I believe it was a mild expressive language impairment and a mild to moderate receptive language impairment. Now, to explain to everybody, receptive is your ability to understand words and sentences, and then expressive is your ability to then use your words and sentences effectively. I also recall Serge had phonological awareness difficulties, which means he had lots of trouble putting sounds and blending them to spell and read effectively. So, in terms of his learning, all areas of his learning were impacted. And I also believe he had some speech errors too, but not
Yeah.
as much. And
Mhm.
yeah, and then so how did you feel? It was quite a big report. So how did you feel, Nikki, when you received this chunk of information? So you pretty much transitioned from the teacher saying, "Get your foot on it now, support your child," to getting all this jargon to
Yeah.
thinking, all right, what's next? What do I have to do? And you're a very task driven person too. So I can just
Yeah.
imagine how confusing that experience would have been for you.
Yeah, look, I didn't understand it. I don't know if other mums feel this way, but I didn't get it. I mean, I got it. I knew something was going on with him. I didn't even know how to help him at that point. So,
Yeah.
and I found, I'm going to be really honest because I don't like to put other pathology
Yeah.
places down
Yeah.
because I think they all do a really great job. But they didn't do a great job explaining it to me either.
Mm.
And I felt like I was slapped into just, well, we haven't got anything for you now. So your son's got issues, but we haven't got anything for you now. We'll put you on a wait list. And I was like,
Yeah.
it was disheartening.
That's
I think.
disheartening. Yeah. And I think from a business perspective, it's like false promises. Your son has an issue, your child has an issue, but I can't give you what you need. You just have to wait. And that anguish that parents experience, it's not fair for them. So for me as a business, I'd
Yeah.
much rather wait till I can offer
Yeah.
a certain therapy time after the assessment to help the family out rather than leaving them in limbo.
100%.
Mm,
So yeah, it was a huge report, right? Like I don't even
mm,
think I did it from top to bottom, if I'm really honest. But
mm.
I asked the most important questions. I got essentially what he needed, and I knew he needed to get help before he fell behind even
Yeah,
further. And I think also for children, and I'm sure other mums will agree with this, there is a small window where they're unaware that they're different. There's such a small window. So for me, I knew, okay, he's in kindy, he has no clue.
yeah,
He's just happy to be there. But I knew there would come a time if I wasn't careful and I didn't move quickly that he would recognize. And that time came, and you know that because we spoke so heavily about it.
yeah.
Um, so I knew I had to move as quick as possible because, other kids at school are mean. They can be mean,
Yeah.
especially with people with learning difficulties.
I really appreciate you saying that we have to act and assess and access early intervention as soon as
Yeah,
possible because there's going to come a point where a child thinks, hold on, how come Johnny, who's sitting next to me, can complete a task within 5 minutes
yeah,
or even understand the soccer teacher's direction
yeah,
without me asking for assistance, without me being pulled out of the classroom? And
yeah.
the impact on a child's self esteem and their
Mm,
confidence to complete other tasks is
yeah,
quite huge. And this is why we stressed get started early, get
yeah.
involved early, get all the teams to help your child out because we
Mm,
want to limit the
mm.
likelihood of affecting your child's mental health later on down the track.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I think it is so important. And we were, I still no, I don't kick myself. I try not to kick myself at me ignoring my mum gut over a few times in his life. Because, Savina, my eldest daughter, is a different child who had none of those issues. Um, I try not to kick myself, but I'm already behind the eight ball. And in some ways, Serge was still early intervention,
yeah, yeah, he was.
but I was still behind. If I had acted on my gut on those couple of times, it would have been a very different outcome for him. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But in hindsight, we have a beautiful story to tell, which I'm so
Oh my
thankful
gosh,
for.
it's
Yeah.
my favorite story to tell, to be
Yeah,
honest. My
yeah.
favorite story to
So I vividly remember receiving a call from with a woman with a New Zealand accent, and I naturally assumed she's got big flamboyant hair because if anyone knows Nicky, her laugh is the most infectious laugh.
I'm gonna laugh like a girl now, not like a hyena.
Have you seen that Instagram reel? Go when I'm out in public, I do. But when I'm with my girlfriends, I'm like,
And a slap of the a slap of the knee as well.
and then you like got that silent gasp where you're like holding your breath. That's my laughter. That's
Yeah.
our laughter, Nikki. But today we'll
Oh,
just do the.
100%. We're not gonna show people that side of us just
No, no,
yet.
not yet. Probably later. Probably later. But so yes, on the phone call, I heard your anguish. I felt your desperation, and I honestly just thought, "Who's this New Zealand woman? Where does she live in the area? I've never met her before." Then I saw your surname. I thought, "Oh, she's a Greek lady. Oh, interesting, interesting." So we arranged a Zoom meeting, and funnily, when Charlie, your dog, came into your family,
Yes. Rita's favorite person in the whole
and
well,
for
favorite
those
in the whole entire world, yes.
for those who don't know me, I have a phobia with dogs to the point that if I'm on my morning run and I see a dog within a kilometer, like a few meters away, I will make sure I cross the road so there's no interaction because the last thing I want is this dog to think I'm its friend and it sniffs away. So Charlie's a new dog in the picture and I'm a new professional. It's something I had to brace, didn't I, Nikki?
Oh, you did, yeah. Poor Charlie. And you got to remember when you came into my life, Charlie was like a pup. We're not
Yeah.
talking about like, and Charlie's not a big dog, but she was a pup, and I had to lock her. Do you remember I used to lock her in that little not a cage, but like a I don't even know what
Like
it was. Like,
a little bed, and then you'd
yeah,
have to put her in the room because you knew Serge needed therapy, but you didn't want to get rid of me because of your new
yeah,
toy.
I know. I know. It was not a match made in heaven, you and Charlie, but we made it work, Rita, for
Should we share the story when you were on a work Zoom call and Charlie left the bedroom and I had like this yelp myself? You
yeah.
want to share
Listen, my dog has given me a few good stories, but yeah, I was on a work phone call and Rita, she got out.
I think so. She somehow got out. I don't know how. I was sitting on your kitchen bench with Serge and I just
Oh,
hear this thing running around the corner.
and in the middle of my meeting, I hear this high pitched scream. And I'm like, you're gonna have to hold on. I'm trying to act all professional. Run and go get and save Rita's life because this little tiny puppy is gonna eat her. But I get it. I've got a lot of friends with dog phobias. Like as
It's
much
just
as
the
we laugh
way Charlie came out. Oh, it was hilarious. Sorry, I haven't laughed this much on a podcast before. But yes, so then so
about,
God bless Charlie. I spoke with you and your husband Nectar about the journey, explained the
yeah,
assessment, and pretty much told you this isn't an easy road.
yeah,
Given your child's diagnosis, we need to do X, Y, Z.
yeah,
Let's anticipate over a year of treatment. Now, I don't like to give a number with how long treatment can take because with a child who has a disorder like Serge, it's unpredictable. We don't know how they'll receive the treatment. We don't know how the parents will apply the treatment, how well
yeah.
they'll cope with the school. So how was that news when I'm explaining to you the goals and the long-term impact for Surge?
Listen, I think with my journey so far up until the point where I met you that night, I think you had given me hope, Rita. So I think for me, I was just grateful that I found somebody that was going to invest in me and my family, even in Charlie, invest in my kid. And I felt like it's what Serge needed. You know, sometimes when you go to other speech pathology places, they have you there for 30 minutes. It's very clinical. It's no bond with the kid. Sometimes you don't get the same person. I now in hindsight, it's really easy for me to say that would not have worked. Well, not really easy for me to say. I can say confidently that wouldn't have worked for Serge.
Mm.
He would not have come as far as what he's come today if he had that sort of treatment. The
Why
treatment,
so?
the treatment that you provide is very targeted towards the child, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Getting them to build that relationship. You found what made Serge tick. Serge
Mm.
wanted, one of his I mean, you saw him tonight, Rita. Sorry, I
Yeah,
mean, we didn't.
yeah, yeah,
You had. I was like, Serge, go to bed, and he's like, I want to see Rita. Like,
yeah.
it's not about you, and he wouldn't go to bed until he came to say
The
hello to you.
impact. Yeah, yeah,
And that's a testament to you and the relationship that you've built with him. So I truly believe, I think for me that night on that phone call, I just was very hopeful. I was like, he's
yeah.
going to have it in his own home. I'm going to be able to learn how to help him. So yeah, I was hopeful.
Yeah, oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you for your beautiful words because Serge being my first child, being my first client, being my
Yeah.
first client under my business, I just wanted to give him all the opportunities that I can and the skill sets that I have to make him succeed academically and thrive as an individual because he's just so gorgeous and his heart is so pure and I just fell in love with him. I fell in love with him that day.
Yeah.
And for context, when I met Serge, my first appointment, Serge wasn't speaking very much when I met
No,
him.
no.
He he had lots of trouble telling me what words were. He would be very non-specific. So if we're looking at a phone, he'll be like, and he would giggle a lot.
Yeah.
I noticed Serge would be a larrikin, and it
Mm,
was like a mask for him to cope with his challenges. And that broke my heart, Nicky, when I saw that, because lots of people will misinterpret a child behaving that way as a spunk, as adorable, as a cheeky little thing. But I saw it as this is a boy really struggling to communicate, and he knows very well how
mm,
to hide his challenges. And
absolutely.
did I bring that to you? Did you notice that until I brought it to your attention?
Um, and I think this is another great thing about the way that you do your therapy with your the families that you're engaged with, or for us anyway. I remember that phone call very vividly. And what I loved is you'd be like, okay, great, we're finished today with Serge. Serge, go inside and play if we were together, or you would call me. But
Mm.
I remember that conversation very vividly, because as soon as you said it to me, I went, oh my God.
Mm.
It's like the penny dropped. I was like, he does this all the time. Not only I can imagine him doing it at school, but he does it at home. He does it in front of family. Um, and it made me incredibly sad too, right? Who wants to
Mm.
see that your kid and I think that was the first time I think he is starting to notice that something, he's not maybe as smart as other kids, or he didn't feel as smart, or something
Mm.
was different. And I think, yeah, so I remember that. And I was very grateful for it, because I think I've learned so much along the way about
Mm.
him, but also how to help him.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. He has come a long way. Now, let's talk about the finances and that
Mm,
wonderful moment. Again, I remember receiving a call on a Thursday or Friday afternoon when Serge was accepted under the NDIS scheme. Talk to
yes.
me, and I have to put a disclaimer here. I've been practicing for so many years, and Nikki's experience with NDIS has been a blessing and
Yeah.
a wonderful testament to the early scheme of NDIS.
Mm,
Whereas now it's far more challenging for children to access the funds.
yeah.
I'm very grateful that Serge got the funding, because without it, he wouldn't have been able to access so much intervention. And you can
No,
agree with that, Nikki, yeah.
yeah.
And I'm forever grateful that that moment we met that caseworker and
Yes.
we demonstrated to her his challenges.
Yeah.
And yeah, let you talk about that experience, Nikki, so listeners can.
Look, I think, I remember one of the things you had said to me on that phone call with Nectar, my husband. You had said, look, what would be beneficial to Serge is having fortnightly,
Yeah.
you know, sessions. And look, both of us are working parents. We have a mortgage. We have two kids. It isn't as always easy just to be pulling money out at that rate, especially fortnightly. And I remember thinking, oh God, this is gonna be really tough.
Mm.
And I don't. And I remember, I think I even said to you, I'm not even sure we could do
Yeah.
fortnightly. And
Yeah.
what else? How can we make this work?
Mm.
So when the option of NDIS had come, and I think you had suggested it to me,
Mm.
I really had no idea what I was walking into. I had no idea the hoops that they do make you jump. And I'm very grateful for because I know some other families don't get that,
Mm.
the funding that we got. But the hoops that they make you jump through is incredibly hard. And I do understand why a lot of families give up, because if
Mm.
I had given up, or if I hadn't have got that great caseworker, or had you guiding me along the whole way, because I really had no idea what some of the paperwork that had to be filled out. If you remember, I was like, what does it even mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was there a problem with your citizenship too? Like, I think was it your, yeah, like,
Yes.
because you're Australian, but I couldn't remember what the challenges were, and I thought, oh God, I don't think we're going to get it. It was
Yes.
really complex, but you got
But,
it. The
and
big
I
but.
think, I think it was a series of all things, but yeah, it was a really good moment when we did get it, because I knew at that moment that Serge was going to get the treatment. And I think did we even do weekly at one point?
Yeah, because we're very thankful you got quite a substantial amount
Yeah.
of funding,
Yeah.
and we thought, and I think at the time they said it would only be 18 months or something you had access for it. Yeah. And I thought, there's no harm. You're not accessing anything else. Let's just get started. Let's just get
Yeah.
started. And I saw him every week at home,
Yeah.
and the beautiful Serge just started to talk more, started to argue more instead of using his behavior. And a lot of parents get upset when their child argues. I'm like, that's actually the best thing when I love that, because a child can come up with a reason to defend themselves and find all these words and formulate these sentences. Whereas
Yeah.
previously, a child used to get frustrated and hit something or throw something as their anger, but now
Yeah.
they're able to use their words to
Mhm.
defend themselves. And to me, that's a testament to a child's language getting so much better.
Absolutely. I
Mm,
agree with
mm. So,
that. Yeah.
yes, when we started school based treatment and he's flourishing, and 3 years later, Serge we completed an assessment, and he no longer presents in the delay disorder range, which was very, very, very pleasing and
Yeah.
very promising for Serge. Talk to me through what your impressions were of therapy, because a lot of parents think it's just play. And I
Yeah.
can completely understand why parents think, I'm paying her that much just to blow bubbles and play with Lego or kick a ball around the house. Remember I used to do soccer?
Well,
Like, and
one
I
of his
can
favorite sessions.
one of his favorite sessions. And I thought, and as a mum, you think that's a lot of money for someone to do that with my child. Is it even worth it? So
Yeah.
I would love to know your perspective so other families can understand that.
Look, I've heard that from parents before, right? I've heard those same concerns, um, but I keep going back to the relationship that Serge has with you, right?
Mm,
I keep going back to that for me. You watch your kid. If everyone bothers to just watch, don't look at the therapy. Watch his growth of, I started to notice, and it didn't happen quite at first, right? Because he was getting to know you, you were getting to know him. But then I started to notice the slow improvements. And every time
mm,
he would improve, I'd be like, oh, that's something new.
yeah,
you know, that's great. And I enjoyed also taking those lessons that I learned in your therapy, especially in those early days
mm,
of my parenting with him at home. So that
mm,
was really good. I think um, parents need to remember with therapy as well. I found this that Serge would go on an incline and then he would just plateau for a
yeah.
while.
Then I
And
get a
then,
call from Nicky.
yeah. But then something else presents itself. Like,
Yeah,
no, I am a big believer in therapy.
yeah,
I probably am more so a believer in therapy, speech therapy, the way that you deliver it, which is like
mm,
45-minute sessions to an hour sessions. Because that gives enough time for the kids to settle in. Sometimes they didn't want to learn. Do you remember Serge went through a phase of, I don't want to do it. And I remember you saying to me, I'm just going to make this session fun for him so he can like take a break. He's letting me know that he
mm,
needs a tiny break. And
mm,
I think that's great for the kids. I
mm.
think if you keep drumming it down them and forcing them to be somewhere, they're going to end up hating it too.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So,
yeah. And I think,
and
oh,
sorry to
sorry.
interrupt you, but even the playing part of it, I still remember that soccer. He would still tell you about that soccer session you set up for him.
Mm,
He was so excited. He was showing you his skills. He was like, I'm so good at soccer. Like, watch me. But through it all, he was learning. I can't remember exactly what you were teaching him that day, but it was something. It was something to do. He was speaking to you, and he was only allowed to kick the ball once he'd said a sentence or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so he's learning and playing. Why should it not be fun so that
yeah.
they can engage a little bit more?
I remember when he was a bit unwell and he just couldn't be bothered to do anything. So we're playing FIFA.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there, and I, as a mum of three daughters, I have no idea about soccer, Nikki, you know that. So
Yeah.
I made the therapy session when Serge had to teach me how to play FIFA
Yeah.
soccer. And so he's like, how does this work? How can you not play FIFA? And he's giving me all these directions. But it was so beautiful because Serge had to use what he knew,
Yeah.
but to help me out. It's like he took on the role to be kind and empathetic through his own interest. And that session, I played my first FIFA game on
Yeah.
PlayStation.
Did
But
you
he
win?
helped. I don't even know if I want to be honest. I didn't know who I played. I was just too busy trying to get the bloke to say a sentence.
100%.
But he achieved it, and I just think that's such a beautiful testament to his own intrinsic belief and his own willpower to achieve success and to thrive.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know another thing that I noticed, Rita, is that, through the years of therapy that I've been with you and, and watching Serge develop, do you remember when I think I'd come back from one of his soccer trainings, and I'd realized that he doesn't know how to take instruction. So he'd come so far, his speech had gotten better, and I'd realized through his non-hearing for the first 3 years of his life, he chooses to watch rather than listen to what somebody's saying.
Mm,
It became bigger than speech in some ways for
mm,
him. He had to relearn how to learn. and how to listen to what someone's saying. And I think it was around the time that we realized in a class setting he's getting lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
love that you mentioned that because I spoke to you in quite some depth that there's only so much that I can do as a therapist in the one-to-one clinic environment. We
yeah,
need to work with other people in his environment, such as his soccer teacher, his classroom teacher support, because the idea of generalization is the word I want to say here. What I do in the therapy is wonderful. There's reduced distractions. It's just Serge and I. But the minute a child's around his friends, the minute you have all this stimulation, it's
yeah,
like a child goes into a little cocoon
mhm,
and is in fear and is
mhm,
uncertain. And
yeah,
it's like everything that we have taught one to one pretty much goes to the side
mhm,
because there's like the lack of confidence to ask for assistance, the lack of
yeah,
confidence to believe in themselves. And that was a big thing that we worked on with Serge to let him know how to manage his
mhm,
difficulties when moments like that became overwhelming.
yeah. And I think, it's a real credit to you, Rita, but also a credit to his teachers, because I
Yeah,
think that's when he's heavily started working with the teachers that he had over the last couple of years. And credit to them too, because they
yeah,
took it on real wholeheartedly and helped him, reminded him to ask for help if he doesn't understand. It's okay. Because now those feelings were coming in for him, which
yeah,
was, oh no, I'm different. I remember when he come home one day and he was like, I got teased because I was in a low reading group.
mm,
And you just never want to see your kid feel like they're just, that they're so far behind,
yeah.
Um, but I was really grateful to the teachers and yourselves for helping him come to a place where he would be able to ask for help when he struggled inside such a busy setting.
Yeah, yeah, he's done so, so, so well.
Yeah.
Um, Before we finish up, Nikki, I
Yes.
wanted you to tell the listeners, for any mother going through my child will grow out of it, he's just a boy,
Yeah.
what shall I do? What advice, if you were about to have like if you were next to that mum at a soccer match and
Mm.
they were hearing the same things that you heard 3 years ago, what would
Yeah.
you tell them?
Um, don't ignore your gut. Your
Mm,
gut knows. And I think, society these days, a lot of moms will be like, oh, you're just being silly. I
mm,
can't, if I had a dollar for every time somebody had said that to me about Serge, even through his therapy, oh, he's fine now. And I'd be like, oh my God, like, no,
yeah,
he's still behind and he's struggling. I just wish mums would back themselves a little bit more. I see it, right? I'm a
mm,
big advocate for other mums. I always say, my niece just had a baby recently, and she's doing such a great job. And I remember she said to me, oh, were you a routine mum? What did you do? And I said, it doesn't matter what I did. What works for you?
yeah,
Listen to your gut.
yeah, yeah,
You're a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And she is doing 3 months in, she's doing a great job. The kid is healthy, the kid's about to sleep through the night, all of those things. So I just push other mums to listen to their gut. They know their kids best. They'll know it better than even any, you know, preschool teacher,
yeah,
better than anyone.
yeah.
And just don't ignore, I think, when you feel like something's going on, because early intervention is definitely
Ask
the
the
way.
questions, ask who do you see, what do
Yeah,
you see, and always I think sometimes always ask your circle of friends before you go to the GP because
yeah,
sometimes GP could be like, oh, we can wait a bit longer, and time
mhm,
is so crucial that if we
yeah.
start early, the outcomes are significantly better for your child.
Oh, 120%,
And I would like to also raise credit to your husband, Nectar. You two are a powerhouse couple where you worked, even though I worked closely most of the time with you, Nectar, with Nikki, I know Nectar had your back, or you had Nectar's, is that how you say it, Nectar's back? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Nectar had
yeah,
your back, yeah. Because you worked together and you bounced off each other. Many couples find that really hard because sometimes the dad says, why am I paying this person to do all of this therapy? And that's the hesitancy some mums also face. So having those open conversations with the therapist and both parents together to
mhm.
educate them as to why we need to do this with all their families and to help the child out at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think you just, I mean, I'm sure other couples are just the same as us. I have taken the forefront with the kids when it comes to their health, or in regards to even Serge with this. And I think there was a point where maybe Nectar didn't quite maybe think that there was something that's heavy going on with him. But I just remind him, if he gets to year 4, year 5, and he's behind, what would you like me to do then? There'll be a point where it becomes a bit too late, and then they're going to be quite different. So yeah, I'm very lucky with Nectar, because at the end of the day, when I push something, but like you said, I'm just like a bull. I'm just
I love it.
you
I
know.
love it. You're task driven, and I absolutely love that, because it's like, do you trust me? I want
Yeah,
to try this with Serge. You trust me? Like, yep, let's just get it done. And I love that, because it's like I have the trust from you, and I feel so empowered by that. And that really pushed me to keep going in my business, because you saw something in me that I never saw within myself,
yeah.
which I was always a beautiful reminder that I just helped that little boy Serge out, and I
Yeah.
can do that with all the clients too. So thank you,
Oh,
Nick.
well, you become a therapist though, right? Like, remember the time Serge came in and he had a fight with a kid? He
Yeah.
was like, you rang me and you're like, you didn't hear it from me. Something's going on. And I thought, poor Rita, she's like here to help him with his speech and, learning and all of this. And now she's rigging up and she's his personal therapist too.
I'll never forget that call. It's like, Nicky. So actually, on the way home, I said, "So Serge has told me a situation. This is just because of child protection, and just letting you know, if Serge looks a bit silly today, this is why. But don't you dare say anything, because he'll lose trust in me."
Yeah, and I didn't, and because I value that just as
Yeah,
much. I'm grateful for that. That he has another trusted source that's not us, because sometimes kids, it's when
yeah,
you catch them in a moment.
yeah,
You know,
exactly. Imagine
um,
he calls me in like 15 years' time and says, "So I've met this chick." I met this chick. What do you think, Rita, before I show her my mum? Next minute,
we're
Nicky, she's
gonna
brunette.
say no. We're gonna say no. I'm not gonna cope. He's my baby.
Oh, he's like my son, so it's okay. She has to get the final okay with me.
No, 100%, 100%.
Oh, Nikki, this episode has been beautiful, and I'm forever grateful for you. I think I've said it throughout this whole episode too, but thank you again for being a guest on Wine with Wita on this special episode of RS Speech Pathology's third birthday. Before we finish up, I always ask my guest, if you were to be a better version of yourself tomorrow, Nikki, what word will you apply to yourself today?
Oh, that's really putting me on the spot.
That's what I love. That's what I love.
What word would I be a better version of myself? What word? Um, oh my God, Rita, I don't know. I've really stumped myself. What are some of the other answers that people say?
That means you should be listening to the podcast, Nikki.
I would have had my answers straight away. What would it be? It would be my word would be believe.
Believe. Why?
To believe in myself a little bit more.
How so?
I think that we all, as mums, have, I don't know if it's social media. I mean, maybe this is a whole nother conversation and a whole nother
Yeah.
podcast that you
Oh,
can
let's
do.
not talk. We can talk about it briefly. I actually think, sorry to interrupt you, but I
No,
actually think social media has become so toxic that
yeah,
I myself have made a choice to only use it for business purposes, and I've
yeah,
actually outsourced any business social media
yeah,
work to a business for them to do it for me. And I have my beautiful assistant takes full control over my social media account, because I mentally I can't cope with trying to focus business and then seeing all these reels popping up at the one time, because it
yeah.
wasn't good for my mental health.
Yeah, and you'll see it with a lot of mums, right? So my word believe is, in a world of comparison, to just believe in what you're doing and in the small things of the day to day. I've got these two kids that look up to me and they think
Yeah.
I'm awesome.
Yeah.
Like Serge even said today, he was just going to soccer and he goes, God, Mum, I love you. Because sometimes not
Oh,
scream, but you're a bit scary when you scream, but he's like, I love you. And I just think, I'm doing something right, right?
yeah.
I've got two happy little kids, that I'm doing something right. So
Yeah.
that's my word.
Well, you're the first one that has ever used that word, believe.
So what are the other ones that people say? Now I want to
Um,
know.
Go listen. There's about 50 episodes you have to catch up to. Believe, perseverance, trust, faith, advocacy. What else? Play, strong. Warrior was a good one that I had. Warrior.
Yes.
Yeah, they're really good because I love asking that question because it makes you stop, pause,
Yeah.
and reflect. Because again, we always go to the negative part of our brain.
Oh,
And we're
100%.
so strict. We don't, oh, that's another word, compassion. When we
Yeah.
don't give ourselves enough compassion as women to
Mhm.
push us through and just be so proud of how far we've come because we're
Yeah.
always seeking to achieve the next big great thing. And what are
Absolutely.
we waiting for? Just love ourselves enough.
And one thing that I also want to say is that in Serge's diagnosis and the years that we've, known each other, there comes a real stigma around, something maybe being wrong with your kid.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and you'll know this because you know me well enough now. We've spoke about it at dinners together, but I truly believe that there should be no shame around it.
Yeah.
The goal should be for your kid. I see it in some parents who have a real problem or they worry how it will be perceived.
Mm.
But I truly believe that, it shouldn't really matter.
No.
Every kid
And
grows
that's so
differently.
heartbreaking, right? That
Yeah.
parents feel a sense of shame, that parents have a sense of denial. And when
Yeah.
you have those feelings, that you actually have hesitancy to accessing the services because of your own insecurity,
Yeah.
because of your own limited belief. And who suffers at the end of the day? The kids.
Yeah.
And this is why I created Wine with Wita, because you're a real story, Nicky. Every
Yeah.
other guest that I've had on is a real story. There's no shame in saying what's wrong with your child because we're all in this together.
No,
Everyone has a story. We all come the same way. We all go the same way. But your time here on this planet
yeah.
is to be lived because you were only made your certain way. Like you're so unique in yourself.
Yeah. Love that.
I love
100%.
that. And what a beautiful message to send everyone. And for everybody else, if you would love to reach out to Nikki, I'm sure she won't mind for some words of wisdom that she might share. I'll put her Instagram handle on the show notes. But for everybody else, thank you for coming on this ride with me with 3 years of RS Speech Pathology. And here's to another 3 years plus. So thanks for coming on Wine with Wita today. And another episode will be released really soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Wine with Wita. I hope you found some new inspiration, learnt something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you please leave a 5-star review, as it really helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it takes 5 seconds. If you're keen for more strategies and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow RS Speech Pathology.